The only thing better than a beautiful win is a fast loss, realizing nobody really cares, so move on.
Welcome you to another fabulous episode, my lovely people, to the B2B Sales Trends podcast, the show that brings you hacks, tips, thought leadership to the topic of B2B selling. My name is Harry Kendelbacher, and today's episode is about owning the narrative in the age of an informed buyer. Fabulous topic, very relevant to a lot of people. And our expert today to help us with that topic is Sarah Branfman. Sarah is the Global VP of ISV Sales and Go-to-Market at Databricks. Sarah, it is an absolute pleasure for us to speak today. Thank you for your time. Welcome to the B2B Sales Trends podcast.
Amazing. I am so happy to be here. So thank you for having me, Harry.
Absolute pleasure. Sarah, let's start talking a little bit about your background. I know you've led sales and go-to-market functions across Databricks, MongoDB, and beyond. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey and what your role looks like today?
Absolutely. And I'm one of those with a pretty nonlinear career journey. So we won't get all deep into the weeds of it, but I went from a professional ballerina in New York City to pre-med to working for Brian Williams at NBC Nightly News. Through a series of events, I then found my way into tech sales. That was starting with a company called Blue Wolf. They were a consulting company. They've since been acquired by IBM, but that was my first tech sales role. I had a passion for startups. So I got to know the founders of what was then Tengen, now MongoDB. And I joined MongoDB as a 30-person startup and helped it get to be a multi-billion-dollar tech enterprise. And that was just an amazing ride and such a great journey. I touched every part of sales and every part of the business journey. From them being a scrappy startup through the iconic IPO, through figuring out operational excellence and all of that has to come after. I was the first sales rep there, so I had my enablement, because I know enablement is near and dear to all of us. So my enablement was, here's your computer, here's your $2 million quota and how it works, and good luck. Let's go. It was awesome. I opened up hundreds of new logos across every industry, across the largest global brands. I then went on to build and lead teams across enterprise and cloud and sales dev and mid-market and OEM sales. And, I was sort of drawn to and then placed in whatever was in crisis or whatever needed to be built. And that's always what felt really good to me, was how I could build, add value, and influence. All of this for ways of driving impact. When I left, I was VP of partners. So I was focused on ISVs, which are independent software companies, on OEMs. Those are the ones embedding the product in, on our clouds, on our resellers, our channels, on startups. Now I'm at Databricks, and this is amazing also. It's like, what an exciting place to be, truly transforming the market. Right. At Databricks, to your question of what I'm doing now, I'm building out strategic go-to-market with software and data companies. And these are leading companies across every facet of software and data. And these companies are the X factor for our tremendous business growth. And it's an exciting place to be. So that's a little bit about my journey.
I love that intro. What a journey it's been for you, and what a contribution you have made to all these wonderful companies. So congratulations. They are all very lucky to either have had you on board or have you on board right now. So fabulous. Thank you for that intro. We talked a little bit about how buying has changed initially, and research shows, and there's a ton of research out there, that buyers are more empowered than ever. We actually, within our organization, we both train buyers and sellers, and we get a bit of a sneak peek into their behavior. And the research is really clear, and is they just have more power. Buying has changed, so using the same old approaches just doesn't work. Forrester, for example, says that 68% of buyers, should I say, prefer to research on their own before engaging with sales. So if people crop up with the same old boring stuff, it's going to be difficult to drive that conversation or that opportunity through the pipeline. And at the same time, there is still sort of an inherent distrust of sellers. That's what we see. What do you think has changed in sort of that buying journey, and how should sellers really adjust to meet those customers where they are really?
Mm-hmm. I love this, and I'm seeing the exact same things out there. I think
Yeah.
there's a couple things. One, it's not purely distrust. I mean, definitely distrust exists, and especially for technical buyers, like the buyers of Databricks or MongoDB, where I've built my career. So that exists, but it isn't all of it. I think the other big thing is that most buyers, they don't believe that they need a salesperson at all. And when we were catching up before, I told you about a story. It was a CTO at one of my favorite MongoDB customers. They taught me this hard truth because I was working really closely with them, and I thought we had done a lot of great things together. I was spending a lot of time with the EBs, with the champions. We were going and doing major business transformations. And when I was transitioning roles, I was transitioning this account to a new rep, and I was talking up how great the rep was going to be and that they were going to be in good hands. And the CTO, without blinking, he said, "Sarah, we love working with you. But if the account's transitioning, we don't need a new rep. We don't need a sales rep at all. You help to guide us. You help to make us successful. But at this point, you've got great documentation. We understand our needs, and we're just going to let MongoDB know when we need to buy more. You don't need to bring someone on board. Like, we got it." So it was this real thing that he didn't lack trust. It was more that he truly believed what could anyone else do for him now that his team was highly skilled and they knew how to size their demand. And so I think that's what goes a little bit into how much the role of a seller is changing. If I think about yesterday's sellers, I mean, I think about, and I'm just as guilty as anyone else, but skull draggers. We're financially engineering deals. We're stuffing contracts with tons of capacity and as long term as we can because we don't want the renewals to come up because those are painful. Right. And then we move tents, and that's it. And buyers don't want to buy that way anymore. And I can take Databricks as a good example for the future. I mean, the clouds and many others are doing this too. Databricks has completely shifted into a consumption business. Our seller quotas are 100% consumption based. And that's what customers expect. They expect for us to be aligned to value. And when I'm just thinking of, well, how do you align to value and how can you then be a successful sales rep to excel in this new role? You have to bring real expertise. You have to be teaching the customers things that they didn't already know or that they couldn't ask to their favorite AI tool. And you hit on it a little bit, but all of your customers, they are using AI to access product knowledge, to access market insight. And they're getting all this instantly. They get it at 2:00 in the morning when they don't sleep, or they get it when they're thinking about it. They don't have to call you and ask you. So if the seller is just a slower version of AI, then you're not needed. And I like how you're calling it empowered buyers. These empowered buyers, and they expect that sellers are going to be incremental to their research. And if they don't expect that, and if you don't prove it, then you don't need to be there. The seller should be enabling this personalized, value-driven experience. The seller should be this trusted guide that's focused on helping buyers. It's not selling, it's helping buyers, teaching buyers, enabling them on how to get to the business outcomes, how to solve the biggest pains. So that's a little bit of how I think about it.
It's interesting. You said that that's not how buyers want to buy these days. Let me ask you a direct connected question to that. How do they want to buy, in your opinion, these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the buyers, they don't want to be forced. How they were buying, they were being forced to do big contracts. Well, that's what's needed, or that's what's going to unlock this discount or whatever. And now let's go on a journey together. Let's not do a high pressure cooker thing. Let's go
Yeah.
on the journey together. And I can speak to it the most from the Databricks perspective, but let's start with a simple POC, and then let's start getting something underway. How do you build a demand plan? By seeing what the real demand is. How many, we call it DBUs at Databricks, but how many DBUs do you need from these different types of products based on now you're using the product. You're getting your hands dirty with it. You're not having to believe me that everything is going to work out. You're touching, you're feeling, you're experimenting, you're experiencing. And definitely Databricks, like most companies, we will also do commits. We'll also do a big contract. Everyone loves hundreds of millions of dollars in a commit, but you're not forced to do that ever. And it's definitely not the first step. Let's go on it together. Let's, don't listen to me talk about it. Let me show you. And then if it comes to a point when, you do want some special levers pulled, like that's where the big contracts come in. But if not, pay as you go.
Yeah.
Grow as your business needs to grow. Don't be put out on commits that you're not sure if you're ever going to make. And it ends up being shelfware, which is bad for everyone.
Yeah. It's interesting. We've done some research on how many stakeholders on average are in the different industries now impacting the buying or the sales process. And is anything between 5 and 11 in anyone's given sales process. Now, the problem that we see a lot is that sellers are particularly drawn to conversations that they feel comfortable having. And that is with a particular persona in their stakeholder process. Now, when you say buying has changed, I also need to think okay, what are all my stakeholders? And then I'm drawn to the ones that I like to have the conversation with because I know all my technical, ins and outs of the product. And I know I can talk to him or her about the product because I'm, because of my technical knowledge. But really, when I now have to then push out to something like a procurement individual or a financial buyer or a C-suite or, those kind of personas, I don't want to do that because that's uncomfortable to me and I'm out of my depth and I don't know what to do. So my natural tendency is to hold these kind of people off. Now that's a problem. Is that something you experience when you look at salespeople in general, that's an issue?
100%. I mean, it's very human nature, Harry, right? Like we
Right.
can do hard things, but hard things are hard to do. And if
Yep.
I can hit my number doing what I've been doing, talking to the people I've been talking to about the things I've been talking about,
Mm.
why should I go and do a hard thing? And it's you got to do it, or you're going to be replaced by AI, or you're going to get fired, or someone else is going to outperform you, or all these other bad things that can happen. So you don't want to do it. Well, then maybe you should get another
Yeah.
job, or maybe you just got to deal with it. And
Yeah.
I see it. I see it from all different points in both Databricks and MongoDB and a bit in past lives, and also companies that I advise and that I work with more broadly. And everyone's going through this with Databricks. In the earlier days, we had, and we still have, super technical sellers.
Yeah.
And that's important. We're a really technical product, and technical personas, I think more than any other persona, are just trusting in salespeople. Like they don't really want to talk to anyone, much less a salesperson who,
Right.
you have all the ideas of what a salesperson is
Yeah.
going to do and be. So that's a persona. Now, as we're looking at what are the biggest problems and how do you attach to the biggest problems, technical people have big problems, but only if they're like, you got to be able to translate that to the business outcomes. And the people who really feel the business pain, those are line of business owners.
Yeah.
And you can't be talking about bits and bytes and widgets to a CXO line of business, anyone like that. You get relegated back to who you sound like. And most sellers like to make money. That's that's a pretty obvious thing. And if you want to make cute money, keep doing what you're doing. But you want to make big money, then you got to be able to attach to those big problems. And those are oftentimes bigger or different personas. And that's a big thing that we've been investing a lot in is domain expertise within industries and then ability to up level the conversations to these business personas. Now, the beauty and where I see sellers really excel is when they're able to do that translation. So they're not, because you also struggle if all you can do is talk to the business and you can't translate to tech, or you need your SE with you all the time, then you're not going to be great. So how can you be that technical seller, but be audible ready for the different personas, do the translation from hardcore technical requirements to real business pain, be relevant in each of these meetings? And is it hard? Sure. But you can do hard things. You got to learn, you got to study, you got to care. And then you just got to get after it. It's that easy.
Yeah. We always say, and we have some research to back this up, is that people make decisions one out of two reasons, which is either to gain an outcome or to avoid a risk. So if you can help me gain an outcome or you help me avoid a risk, I will make a decision to move from basically do nothing or staying with my current situation. Do you agree with that?
100%. I think about it, and even kind of continuing what you're taking, going a little bit deeper. Gaining outcomes is great, but there are a lot of outcomes you can gain. Same with avoiding risk is great, but there's a lot of different risks. So you got to know, like, how amazing is it going to be when you get that outcome, and how terrible will it be if you don't? And I mean, I think about simple things, especially I have kids. And so there's like all different kind of problems that I'm always dealing with at home. If I cut my finger, that hurts. If I stub my toe, that hurts, but you put a little bit of ice on it and you call it a day. If this almost happened the other day. I was carrying my son on my back, and he's big. I'm not that big. We almost fell. Like if I had fallen and broken that's a real problem. That's like things are on fire. We got to go to the hospital. So think about how big are the problems and what is the pain? And that's like sales 101 basics. It's not purely how great is this going to be or how much risk, but you as a seller have to always be, looking out, because there's a lot of things out there. So look out for what are the biggest things. What will happen if those things don't happen? What will happen if they do happen? And is this what the CXOs at the company care about? Because again, the bigger the problem you're attaching to, that's where you're tied to the bigger money afterwards. And that's also what your champions want to be tied to. Yeah. And so I think about it like that. Like, how do you rise above the noise of all things? And also, as you're going through your accounts and understanding where do you want to prioritize, you can't prioritize on everything. And your champions and EBs are definitely not. So help them to figure out what are the things that are going to be needle moving.
Yeah. I actually noted down what you said. We always talk about two things. First of all, the ROI conversation. Okay, how much ROI can I provide to you if I provide you X, Y, Z? But also that cost of inaction conversation, right? What is it that you're missing by every month by not doing this? And how you said, how terrible is it going to be when it's bad? And sometimes when we have to create urgency in our conversations, that stuff works really well, right?
Well, and two things, Harry. One, that stuff works really well if you can help them stand in their pain. And, it's not you saying, oh, your baby is ugly, but it's them. You're doing the right discovery. It's the two-sided, open-ended questions where we're on this journey together.
Yeah, right.
So there's definitely that. But the other outcome is it doesn't actually hurt that much. And that's okay. If it doesn't hurt that much, then let's figure that out as early on as possible so that we can help reallocate those resources. As a seller, you reallocate yourself to an opportunity that does need to progress. And as a customer, you can reallocate your time to business outcomes that are going to be needle moving. So, I think too often we're like, oh, it's a deal. I found it and I'm going to keep progressing it at all costs. And if there's not pain, move on. That's okay. That's like the only thing better than a beautiful win is a fast loss, realizing nobody really cares. So move on.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about qualification. We touched on that earlier in our conversation in preparation to this recording. Deals rot in the pipeline far too often. Salespeople sometimes live in the land of hope, that hope that things are coming through. Research bodies report that only 22% of sales leaders are confident that their teams consistently qualify well. Another study shows that only 21% of market leaders, or the marketing leaders, should I say, move beyond individual leads to buying group. What does ruthless qualification, in your opinion, look like in practice? And how can it help you, or does it really help you to transform win rates?
Yeah. So when I think of qualification, I think about it from two perspectives. One, it's how you are qualifying the customer. And then two, how you as a sales leader are qualifying your team's forecast, because both of those are really important. And sure, they're completely linked, but we can talk about it from both angles. So first, with how you ruthlessly qualify a customer, no customer wants to be qualified, much less ruthlessly qualified.
Right.
You can smell when someone is asking you this super annoying qualification questions. And you mentioned this up at the beginning, but basic qualification is dead. It's dead on arrival, especially because of all the tools that are available today to do anything. So I think the ruthless qualification, it's first, you got to go in and you have to have done your really good research. You have to do research. If you don't do research, then you're wasting time, and it'll feel maybe like an interrogation at best, or like at worst, you're dumb and you're lazy. So with there being so many tools available today, and then everything being enhanced with AI, you really have no excuse to be very clear and have a very accurate point of view of what your customer's current state is, and what are all the bad things that are going to happen if that continues. What could their state be in the future, and what's the greatness that could drive? And then how are you bridging that gap? And you should be able to do this from both a corporate perspective at the company level and also at that individual person level, being able to map all of that together. So in ruthless qualification, you don't want to be talking at your customer. You don't want to be asking them questions that you should have known before. You want to be able to quickly get to the point where you're able to ask these provocative, thought-provoking questions that are going to help everyone to learn something about where are they going? And I talked a little bit more about standing in the pain. Pain isn't comfortable. Humans don't want to stand in the pain, but there's no deal if there's no pain. So let's understand what that is. And when I'm talking about reduced qualification, it's not like, oh, I want to corner the customer and really make them feel bad about their life and then beat them over the head with how much they need me or their whole world's going to fall apart. No, if you're doing this right, you're on, again, the journey. They are participating in their own rescue, and you are there as the guide. That's the role of a seller, is to teach and enable and guide through the process. And then it's just about being honest and knowing. There's a story that I think of right now. It was a pretty big deal I was helping my team with years ago, and the sales rep on my team, he knew that the customer they really needed all of this functionality, specifically around security. And that's why the customer needed to be at this higher product. And with the amount that the customer needed, it was becoming a pretty big deal. And that was great, except I wasn't totally sure that based on the business outcomes, that deal, it had the right ROI was going to come from it. And so on the topic of qualification, I got on and I was talking with our champion, and just started asking him simple questions, kind of like what we're talking about, of what would happen. And again, this was all around security kind of stuff. So it was authentication, authorization, auditing, and specifically all the reporting that comes from that. And the customer even was like, yeah, yeah, Sarah, I really need that. I told, your rep, I really need that. If not, and he told me some things. And I said, I still don't really understand though. Why do you, what are you really trying to do? Why do you really think you need that? What's going to happen if I said, we don't have this functionality.
Hmm.
You won't have it. And through this half-hour call, it's kind of, I almost anti-sold, but I de-risked the deal. And by the end of it, he said, you know what? Really, the reason why I want to have all these audit reports is because more information is better than less. I said, that's great. But again, I want to make sure that you're getting the right ROI. I want you to be successful, and I want to help you make sure that you're going to get the budget for this, which you're having to take from another group, that this is going to go off successfully, that you're not going to come back to me with some COGS conversation in the future.
Right.
Let's do this right. And that's another example that he didn't feel like I was cornering him. I was helping him, and we ended up making it all work out. And he did end up getting all the audit reporting in there, but it helped us to understand what is really important and how to put together a deal that was going to add the right value. So how are we enabling them on this whole value curve, giving them that personalized, journey?
I love that. I love that. And it's interesting. It sounds like, so a lot of people qualify. Okay, we can discuss the quality of their qualification or the way they do it. But that's really it. They do their qualification piece, ask their 10 questions, and then they move on. Do you believe in qualifying and requalifying and qualifying again to really make sure it sounds like you do from that story.
100%. And
Right.
I mean, you mentioned it with how now I think you said 7 different people for a particular deal.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these deals, if you're talking about 200, 300, $500 million deals,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that got to get involved from different business
Right.
units, different levels within the org. And if you just qualify it once and then you're like, well, I got it, my deal's baked, and you're writing your entire deal off of what one person said in one context with their own views and biases and priorities, you're crazy. That's bogus for your forecast.
Yeah.
So not only do you requalify, I'm really big on documenting everything. And when you're presenting, especially to new groups, it's okay, in fact, encouraged to say, here's my understanding. This is what I got from these groups that I talked to already. And this is where you are, where you want to get. These are the things that they said were really important. Are these things important to you too? What would you add, or what here do you think isn't that important? You got to be checking all throughout. If not, you're relying on hope, and hope is not a strategy.
Right.
So it's my take for it.
You mentioned something that is very dear to my heart. Is this you framed it around provocative questions, and it is interesting. I always say this around. If somebody comes to me and asks me 5 questions, and I know exactly that they are only asking me those 5 questions to confirm basically what their assumptions are, that doesn't add any value to me. So if you're challenging me with provocative questions, we have our own questioning technique. We call them striker questions. There's a challenge, there's a shock, there's a prioritize, there's all these wonderful things in it. But if you challenge me to think about the needs that I haven't thought I had, they're unconsidered, they're underappreciated, that can have impact on the outcomes of my business, that's what adds value to me, even in my qualification process. Does that resonate with you?
1,000%. I love that. And when I think about a great discovery question, it's the person, just to your point, when someone asks you a question, Harry, you should be learning just as much as the sales rep who's asking you the question. That's when the real magic comes. And then your customer is having this self-realization. And that's power. That's something that, going back to early, that's something that the customer isn't going to get by asking Perplexity or ChatGPT or whatever their AI tool is. That's something that a great, intelligent, curious sales rep that's that guide. That's that journey. Help me do more than I can research on my own.
And we've seen the best salespeople who do this, they even start not with the question in mind or say, I'm going to qualify, but they start with the need that they want to generate in the mind of the buyer first and say, this is the need that is probably unconsidered, that they probably haven't thought about, they haven't anticipated, they haven't appreciated, can impact their business. But instead of me going in and telling you that this should be your need or this is that, I'm structuring a thought-provoking conversation that is spick with questions that gets you to that need that is now generated in your mind. And that's where I have that ultimate qualification.
Couldn't
Right?
agree more. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, what I did as an IC and what I had my teams do as a leader, if you're not preparing
Right.
for that meeting,
Right.
then, I heard this from someone, so this isn't
Right.
my quote, but if you're failing to prepare, then you're preparing to fail. And to exactly your point of, you sort of know the end that you want to get them to.
Yeah.
You might be wrong, and you got to be okay being audible ready and pivoting,
Right.
but you should have mapped out what you think based on all the research that you did. And then you should have your specific questions. Think about it ahead of time. Don't just go in there and wing it. And we're having a good conversation about weather, and now bam, I'm going to ask you something.
Right.
No, figure out, what do you think their current state is? And what do you think the negative consequences of that are going to be? And then think about the question that would help them to get to that answer on their own. And that's part of the whole orchestration of it. And I think this isn't just in sales. This is in anything human. Again, I think about it with my family, my husband. Don't tell him, although he'll probably watch this. Like, when I want my husband to do something, if I tell him, you got to do this, honey, he gets a chemical reaction. He doesn't want to be told what to do. But if I ask him the questions and it's his idea, he's not going to disagree with himself.
Yeah.
So it applies to
There's so
everybody.
many methodologies out there, especially in the sales world, that says, "Oh, you got to go in and you tell them insights about how they need to run their." That just doesn't work, in my opinion, whatsoever. And it's about a thought-provoking conversation that covers consequences, that covers outcomes, that covers. The other day we had a senior level CRO from a very large company on the podcast, and he said, it's in this equation, it is value, impact, and outcomes. And if you can't talk to me like that, I'm not going to be interested. And it is really interesting. We are well over time, and that is typically a sign when I really enjoy these recordings with certain individuals. And I'm pleased to say that was a fantastic episode. Sarah, my last question on every podcast is always the same, and we've actually just pulled data on that question, which we're going to release soon because we have 80 plus episodes, and the last question is always the same, is what are, in your opinion, the top 3 qualities an elite salesperson nowadays needs to understand intellectually and execute on a behavioral level in those conversations to make them elite salespeople? What are those top 3 skills and behaviors, in your opinion, that they need to have nowadays?
Yeah, well, when I think about it from like the perspective of what's the DNA of a sales rep, and then I'm happy to go way past our time and talk about some of the other things. But from a DNA perspective, you got to get people who are high drive, and that's it. And that goes to your very first question. This is hard. If you're going to do it right, it's hard. So you got to have drive. You got to be gritty. You got to be scrappy. You can't make up excuses. You just got to want to get after it. So that's the number one most important thing. And it doesn't matter how many years experience or what anyone's Rolodex looks like or anything else. You got to have drive. The other thing is you got to be intelligent, and especially in these complex sales where you've got many different buyers and you got to talk to them all differently. And then if you layer in anything tech, that's like, wow, mind blown. So you have to be intelligent. And with that intelligence comes this innate curiosity, because even though hopefully everyone watching this, you are prepping well, you are doing all your homework, you're using AI to enhance what you've got, and you're getting after it, things are going to come up that you didn't plan for. And if you're curious, then you're able to ask those second, third, fourth level questions that you didn't think about. So I think the intelligence, but that intellectual curiosity is number 2. And then number 3 is coachability. And I've seen some really high drive people who are brilliant, but boy, do they know everything. Nobody knows everything. And if they're not going to be open to how to be better, to learn from their peers, to learn from people below them, to learn from people above them, to learn from the customer, if you're not coachable, then however good you are it's kind of it. So how do you get to be amazing? You got to be coachable. You got to embrace the enablement that your leaders are investing in you. And, you got to be wanting to learn. So I would say those 3 things are the core things from a DNA perspective that are critically important. And then with the different skills, everyone's talking about AI, so I can't not talk about it because it is such an important thing. But it can't be what you just rely on now. No. It's got to be an enhancer to it. So, if you take those 3 DNA things that I was talking about, and then you put in, how do you stay up to date with what's going on? And when I see excellent reps do their research, first, you got to deeply understand the company. You got to deeply understand the people you're working with. And you should just do on your own your research on who that company is. Who are they selling to? Who is their competition? Who is that person? Where'd they go to school? How long are they at the company? Are they a change agent? Like, you can figure this stuff out from reading blogs, from reading 10Ks. So do all your basics and then go to AI. Don't rely purely on AI, but use it to make you smarter. And then you can put some real clever things into it. Like, I don't know, maybe you're looking at all the different job postings that are out there. So give me, based on the jobs that are out here, what do you think are the top things that this company is trying to solve? What do you suggest about their priorities for the next 6 to 12 months? Or always anticipate objections. I would do role plays with myself and with the team to figure out what are all the things that could go wrong. So use AI to say, like, based on the challenges that are going on, what might they have as an objection to this? So TLDR on that is leverage all the tools around you, and the reps that aren't afraid of tools and the reps that are wanting to embrace them, you're going to stand so far above everyone else.
Absolutely. Sarah, thank you. I know our listeners very much appreciate your insights and your thought leadership. Thank you for contributing to the collective pool of knowledge. We really appreciate it.
Amazing. I was so happy to be here, and I'll see you again soon.
Well, lovely people, you heard it from Sarah. Top 3 things. You've got to have drive. You've got to be intelligent. You got to have the curiosity that's combined with that. And you got to be coachable to be top elite. 2 calls to action, my lovely people. Go to the b2bsalestrends.com site, subscribe, share this episode or others with people who you think would benefit from listening to that. Until the next episode, look after yourself, your loved ones, and of course, your B2B customers. All the best. Bye-bye.